So President Trump is threatening a crushing 50% hike on tariffs, pushing total duties on Chinese goods to 104%. Unless the communist country backs off, comes to the table, gives them a call. The White House claims that China wants to make a deal, but doesn't know how. So Trump is ready and waiting for a call from Xi Jinping. The goal is the same, really: stop unfair trade practices, be less reliant on our adversaries like China for essentials like medicine, bring manufacturing jobs back home, and pay down our over $1 trillion trade deficit and our crushing national debt. Let's welcome Dale Smothers, President and CEO of RDS Wealth Management. Dale, good to have you back. So the White House just spoke to the press today, a lot of new updates. They wouldn't say when we'll start seeing benefits from the tariffs and his broader economic plan. That's really the billion-dollar question. But my question to you is, is Trump about to trigger the biggest global trade realignment, the era of American surrender being over with all of this tariff talk and the deals being made? Or are we staring down the barrel of, an economic suicide mission, a recession, let's say?
Alicia, there is a realignment of trade taking place right now, and it is one like we have not seen since World War II. Just like you mentioned, over 70 countries in line now to renegotiate this deal that they have considered to be fair, but in reality, it's just gotten them richer and put us in more of a deficit standpoint. The big one is China. My prediction is that while a recession is certainly not off the table, I don't see us headed there anytime in the near future, because all of this optimism in the trade deals that we're seeing right now, again, 70 countries standing in line ready to make a negotiated bargain deal. When all of that is lined out and the only thing that we're now focusing on is China, I think the economy settles down. I think that cooler heads prevail. And then Donald Trump can really get to work on China and the unfair trade practices that we've seen ever since they've joined the World Trade Organization back in 2001.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good insight. I want you to listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Tucker Carlson's show, where he highlights the widening gap between the rich and the poor in America. It's pretty shocking. Listen.
Summer of 2024, Americans took more European vacations than they had in history. Summer of 2024, more Americans were using food banks than they ever have in history.
Yeah, and these food banks, the food bank visitors, he says, are working families who simply just couldn't make ends meet last year.
Yeah.
And he also pointed out that the top 10% of America own 88% of the stock market. The middle class owns about 12%, and the bottom 50% are just deep in debt, renting homes, car loans. They need relief. So with the Trump tariffs as part of his broader economic plan, including tax cuts, which we're waiting on Capitol Hill to get going right now, deregulation, trillions in new investments in the U.S., bringing jobs back. Can they actually address these inequalities and help future generations, our children?
They certainly can, Alicia. It's certainly not written in stone at this point, as you're aware. But Trump's three-levered approach to fixing this problem, it starts with government spending. If we think about the government budget this year alone, we are set to spend $7 trillion. We bring in $5 trillion. There's a $2 trillion deficit that will be added to our already $36 trillion worth of debt. These numbers have to change, and Donald Trump is aware of that. It's funny that no other president in the last 25 years has really looked at it in any other capacity except just continuing to do what we've been doing, and continuing to do what we've been doing has drove us deeper into debt. The three levers that will be pulled, one has already been pulled. The second has just recently been pulled. Number one is government spending. He is trying to attack the unnecessary, frivolous, and perhaps even fraudulent spending of the U.S. government. This is where DOGE steps in and starts to unwind some of the spending that has already been committed to. We're stopping a lot of that. The goal is to take a $1 trillion cut in our spending over a course of time. So if we think about this from 7 now to 6 trillion, still only bringing in 5, we've got to attack that. How do we bring in more money? Well, you're seeing a lot of it right here. This is the tariff and trade renegotiation, bringing in an additional amount of money. We're selling gold cards for pathways to citizenship, deregulation across businesses. The goal here is to bring in an at least additional $1 trillion worth of revenue, taking us to a balanced, if not surplus budget. And from there, the third lever, which brings prosperity back to the heartland of America. Now, I'm not here to campaign for the Trump agenda, but I'll tell you, this is what it is. The coastlines have benefited long enough. Heartland of America has been suffering from globalization, and this deglobalization bringing companies back into this country are going to benefit the middle class, middle American worker. Yeah. For that reason, I believe that we could see a new ushering in of the American dream, the American economy, and we want to be a part of that. The way that we're going to see a lot of this, as you're aware, is tax cuts made permanent. A potential I've heard this on the table, $150,000 standard deduction for anyone who makes under $150,000, no income tax. That's been thrown out there. How amazing would that be? Mm-hmm. Bigger paychecks being brought home. And the third thing is corporate taxes being cut from 21% to potentially 15%. And not only is it economically impossible to do business outside of the United States because of tariffs, it's economically beneficial to do business in America because you pay less in taxes. Again, this will take time. It takes cooperation. And we've been saying it for many months. It's going to take a little bit of pain for that long-term gain.
Yeah, the timeline is really the billion-dollar question. No one really knows, but we are moving in that direction. We even saw years ago Democrats like Pelosi and Schumer talk about doing this, especially getting fair trade from China, and they just talked about it. And now President Trump is doing something about it.
It's a painful thing, Alicia. That's a painful thing to do as a politician. You're laying potentially your political life on the line when you take actions like this.
And you mentioned the coastal elites. They're the ones that have been really benefiting in the previous economy. So now it's time to focus on the heartland. What about the market? You know, it's a long-term investment, volatile on a day-to-day basis, as we have seen in the past few days. But what about Americans retiring now? What do you say to them watching their 401ks take a hit?
It's a scary time. 3 things that a retiree needs to do in moments just like this. We talk to clients every single day. Now, we have been gearing up for times just like this for the last couple of months, putting money aside, specifically that money that we needed for income. But if you caught yourself in this situation, go back to your plan. Number 1, what is your retirement income plan? It should encompass your timeline. It should encompass your risk tolerance. The second thing you got to do is look for balancing opportunities or rebalancing opportunities here. If you own some treasuries, they've stayed pretty high through all of this mess. You've owned equities that have fallen, rebalance. Sell high, buy low. Number 2, rebalance. Number 3, consider Roth conversions in these lows, especially if you have the ability to do an in-kind transfer, perhaps in an IRA. That Roth conversion could move a stock, let's say like Apple, that's at a steep discount right now, over to a tax-free environment, and then all of the appreciation that you experience over the next 5, 10, 15 years is tax-free to you. There are still ways to stay on track with your retirement. Don't panic. That's the number 1 thing. You had mentioned earlier, 80% of the stock market is owned by the top 10%. Mm-hmm. Alicia, I'm afraid that this is a generational wealth transfer event, and too many middle Americans are selling out at these lows to the elites, and we're seeing this divide take a bigger spread if we're not careful. Don't be that person. Don't be on the wrong side of this trade. Don't panic.
All right. Good advice. Great tips. Dale Smothers, President and CEO of RDS Wealth Management. Appreciate your time today, as always.
Thank you, Alicia.